Good morning, everyone. It is unclear to me if this is working, but I think that it is. So, good morning, welcome. For some of you, I think it's still very much morning. It's very early morning for me here in the United States. It's about 6 a.m. But I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I get an opportunity to talk about with you about the future of people. So, with that, let's get right into things today. I know you can ask questions, so if you have any for me, please add them. I'll try to answer them near the end. So as my shirt might indicate, I actually work on the team that makes Alexa here at Amazon, and I want to make sure that as we go through all of this, apologize for the sound. Thank you for the note. Um, that I am here to talk about. So the things that I'm going to talk about today are not. Uh, I don't know what to do about the sound. I think if I stop the screen sharing, the sound gets very, very better. Um, but when I'm sharing my screen, which I need to do show these slides. Give me a recommendation on the audio.
I'm probably with him. Yeah.
They're saying the sound is very bad.
Sir, can I talk to him?
Only
Sorry,
the-
folks. I'd rather give you silence than that.
Recommendation on the audio. All right, I'm gonna keep going in the spirit of time. I want to make sure that I start this with a great big disclaimer. We are here to talk about the future today. That means that we're going to be talking about a number of things that may not happen for 5 or 10 years. But we really want to take a big look at what the future looks like for things like ambient computing, voice,
What's his name? Hi, hello, can you hear me, Jeff?
Yes, I can hear you.
No, mute your guys, mute.
I want to make sure that I start this with a great
Mute it, mute it.
We are here to talk about the future today. That means that we're going to be talking about a number of things that may not happen for 5 or 10 years.
Hi, Jeff, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So try to knock off your microphone, okay? There's a reverb coming, like an echo, okay? Yeah, have you done that?
What do you mean? I don't know why I would have an echo.
Microphone's off. Make sure you were clearly all microphones off.
It's okay, yeah, so you can continue.
Okay. Very good. Apologize, everybody. So I just wanted to start with a great big disclaimer. We are here talking about the future. We're at the forefront of that future, and I want to make sure that we understand that the things that I'm talking about are not near-term promises, but longer-term vision. We're looking at the picture from this distance, right? So it's a very high-level view, but I think it's very interesting to think about where we're going to go in the next 5 or 10 years when we think about the vision of the future for these kinds of technologies. With all of it, though, it starts with people. And people are the core to everything that we do, right? People are the reason we go to work. People are the reason for pretty much everything. Without people, life would be a pretty boring, meaningless place. I want you to imagine for just a minute being the last person on Earth. Imagine how unbearably boring and sad that would be. Your focus would only be on survival, and none of the people that give us the energy and the life that we have today would be there. We'd be focused only on trying to find food and shelter and protecting ourselves. This talk is about technology and people. And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the ways, or at least one specific way, that technology has already fundamentally changed our lives. I wanted to find a picture of a way technology can induce more anxiety, more stress than any other way. And I think I found the photo. The incoming call. How does this image make you feel on a day-to-day basis? What is your response when someone says, "Hey, I'll call you later"? I know what my response looks like, and it looks like this. Like, no, don't call me. Just text me, or let's figure out another way to communicate. But like calling me just out of the blue never really works for me. So why is that? Why are we so averse to talking to someone on the phone? We can probably come up with dozens of reasons why we don't like an incoming call, but the biggest reason really has to do with asynchronous communication. We want to be able to control how and when we are living our lives without interruption. This is a relatively new requirement for our lives. I remember when I was a child, a ringing phone was an infinite number of possibilities, and someone wanted to talk to me. I would run to the phone just to see who was there. But it's gotten so bad that these phones that we carry around in our pockets are actually rarely used as a phone at all. So as we talk about asynchronous communication and the use of our time, I want to make sure that we think about all of the ways that we try to spend our time, right? Some of us are athletes and we want to spend our time getting bigger and faster and stronger. Some of us are artists. We want to create things. We have big, broad visions that we want to share with the world. I know a lot of people, as a part of this pandemic, have been focused on learning new skills like woodworking. I spend a lot of my free time writing code, right? We all have these things that we like to do with our free time. In fact, as a part of this pandemic, I also got back into collecting sports cards, baseball cards, as something that I like to do with my free time. But all of us probably spend a little bit of time doing this as well, right? Watching some television shows or movies. And so it's very interesting to think about all of the ways that we spend our time, because all of us have all of these different needs and desires and wants, but we have one thing in common. We all have stuff. We all have things floating around in our heads. Some are really good. I have a great idea. I can't wait to see my friends on Friday. When are we sending humans to Mars, right? These are all fun, harmless thoughts that we have all the time. But there's also these thoughts, right, that can completely derail your day. How am I going to get this all done? When was my last doctor visit? Are my kids doing okay in school? Is my boss happy with my work? Did I leave the oven on? All of these things live inside our brains. And this is where I want you to start to use your imagination. I want you to take several leaps beyond where most consider things like ambient computing and voice applications to be today. And I want you to imagine having a personal AI companion that can anticipate your needs, give you the information you need at exactly the right moment, and make it significantly easier to focus on what's important. But to do all of this requires trust. As an example, I want you to imagine standing in this field this morning. Everything is covered in a thin coat of dew, making the bright sunrise create rainbow pinpoints on every blade of grass. You take a deep breath in, and I come charging out of those woods towards you. I'm soaked up to my knees. I tell you that today is the last sunrise. There won't be one tomorrow. How does that make you feel? Do you believe me? Do you feel like this is something that could actually be true? Almost certainly not. You have too much prior history. You have too much information to tell you that, in fact, the sun will rise every day for the coming future, as far as you can tell. There's no reason to suggest that it would otherwise. This is how personal AI will feel to us: trusted, reliable. It would be unconscionable to think about this thing failing you. It's this trust that is also a responsibility for all of us as software developers to make sure that we are hyper focused on. Because without trust, none of the rest of this works. Let me give you a great example of that. Many of us have used a pair of Bluetooth headphones before. Do you have the same kind of trust with your headphones that you have with a sunrise? I would probably say no, right? Do they work? Yes. Most of the time, they work really well. But when they don't, you're not surprised. You get frustrated. And when something's unreliable, we tend to use it less. But when it works, oh man, when you put those headphones on and they just pair to the device you want them to use, that's as beautiful as any sunrise. Trust is fundamental to any technology, but for something like ambient computing, it is the foundation on which everything else is built. So let's get back to our frustrated self. Our headphones aren't working. Our kids are screaming. The dog is barking. We take a short walk outside to the mailbox to see what was delivered. But what do we find? Bills. And now our brain is racing about how much everything costs. There are so many stressors in our daily life, and we are the only ones that can solve them, right? Let's talk about those bills for a second, because in the vision I want to paint, we don't pay our bills anymore. Now, I know that probably sounds amazing to a lot of you. Oh, I don't want to pay my bills either. But our personal AI does that. I know what you're thinking. Sometimes I don't have enough money to pay all of my bills all at the right times. I have student debt. I have credit cards. Paying my bills needs to be a very manual process so that I can make those decisions. But my question for all of you, do they really need to be manual? Artificial intelligence can't make better decisions than you do. If you look at games, things like chess, you can find pretty quickly that artificial intelligence can make some pretty robust decisions. It's gotten to the point now that games like chess and Go, the experts, the masters of those games, claim that the game has been ruined by artificial intelligence because it's almost unbeatable by almost any human. If we think about things like stock markets, most of the trades that are happening in the markets today are actually happening automated processes by artificial intelligence and machine learning engines to determine when to buy, when to sell, and how things to move back and forth. Tiny, tiny little transactions over milliseconds sometimes. So much so that they actually had to add cabling inside the New York Stock Exchange just to slow everyone down because the you could make more money the faster the connection was between your building and the stock exchange. We also see this in medicine, right? As we think about doctors, there's lots and lots of ways that they're applying machine learning and artificial intelligence today to medicine. And in many cases, artificial intelligence is outpacing doctors. Now, this isn't in any way to suggest that doctors are doing a bad job. They're doing a fantastic job, better than they ever have. But artificial intelligence can take some of the subjectivity out of those diagnoses and make better predictions about a cancer diagnosis or an outcome for a patient. Something a little more fun. In America, we love baseball here. And one of the things that they have here in baseball is a strike zone. That baseball is passing over that plate that's in the ground, and the umpire has to make a very subjective decision about whether or not that ball was over the plate or outside the plate. They are starting to use some technology in some of the lower leagues of baseball to use artificial intelligence to determine whether or not that ball crossed the plane of that plate. Instead of the umpire being eliminated from the game, they have an earpiece, and the computer actually tells them via a sound whether it was a ball or a strike. Very, very interesting ways to see technology applied. Let's think about the last time you wanted to call your dentist. Most of us don't love going to the dentist. I would imagine most of you don't. My dad is my dentist, so it's a little bit different. I love my dentist. But you probably make your next appointment while you were at your last one, right? So about every 6 months, we try to get to the dentist. And they might write your appointment on a business card or maybe you add it to your phone's calendar, but it's 6 months in the future. I have no idea what my life looks like 6 months from today, at least what my day-to-day schedule will look like. And so as we play with this, as we think about this technology, think about all the things that could be done for us as we start thinking about ambient computing. Instead of me having to call my dentist and then you use a human API to talk back and forth and say, oh, I have next Tuesday. How's your next Wednesday look? Oh, I'm not free in the morning. The dentist isn't here on Thursdays. We can instead have simple things happen like our voice assistant saying to us, hey, I scheduled a dentist appointment for you next Tuesday. That is the entire interaction. I didn't ask, I didn't tell, I didn't do anything. It was able to recognize and project what needed to be done, talk to some APIs, talk to my dentist calendar, talk to my healthcare provider to make sure that I'm eligible for coverage, and look at my own calendar to make sure that I am free at the time that they're scheduling that appointment. All of that could potentially happen behind the scenes. And now we're in a situation where I have a dentist appointment that I didn't have to think about. Apply that same concept to your friends, right? Especially now in the pandemic when we haven't seen people in so long and gone out and done very social things. Imagine looking on your calendar and seeing that on Friday night, you actually have dinner reservations with some friends you haven't seen in a little while. But you didn't make those plans, and your friends didn't make those plans. Instead, your artificial intelligence talked to theirs and was able to coordinate a plan, make a reservation, and schedule time for all of you to spend time together. That is amazing to me. In addition, let's think about things like mortgages. If you think about buying a house today, you have to look at interest rates, you have to do all sorts of things to make sure that you have the right information from the right bank to be able to borrow the right amount of money to be able to pay for a residence. It's a lot of work and a lot of paperwork to go into it. And then once you have your house, if you want to refinance and get a better rate or lower your monthly payment, all of these things are very, very challenging to do and require a heavy lift, a lot of time and energy and effort and research. What if instead, much like your dentist appointment, your personal AI assistant could say to you, hey, I just lowered your mortgage payment by $80 a month. It's not going to cost you anything more, and your mortgage isn't any longer than it was before. I just saved you $80 just by refinancing. Well, that would be amazing. That would blow my mind. These kinds of things take the opportunity to use the world's knowledge to solve problems for us. I'm not paying attention to interest rates every day, but a personal AI companion certainly could. Let's give one more example, because I think this is another important aspect that we want to think about as we go through this process of thinking about technology. You've all probably tried to use some sort of technology in the past to manage your shopping list when you go to the grocery store. As you think about this shopping list, you have all sorts of things that are on there. Alexa does a fantastic job of this, right? Being able to say, add mushrooms to the shopping list or whatever it might be. The problem with this is that it requires behavior change. It requires a human to do something different than they were already doing. If I was really good at keeping track of a shopping list, I wouldn't need an app. I wouldn't need some mechanism to do this for me. It would just be a natural thing that I already do as part of my life. And so being able to manage a shopping list only comes naturally if you're already good at keeping track of your shopping list. So all of this technology is really good if you're able to make that behavioral change. But as we've seen every New Year's Eve, there are lots and lots of good intentions that never really last when we think about all of those possibilities, all those resolutions we make to change our behavior. I've made lots and lots of these resolutions that have failed and failed over time. So the solution here is to find a comfortable mixture, a partnership between our humanity and this artificial intelligence so that we can combine powers. The AI can come meet us where we are so that we can effectively solve the problems that are in our lives without having to make major behavioral changes that we know are so incredibly difficult. So I want you to picture yourself in that world now, a world where you have an AI companion that's solving a lot of your problems for you, handling a lot of the day-to-day minutia, thinking about things that you would otherwise have to stress and research and worry about. What are you going to do with all of that time? Maybe you're going to spend it on this beach. Maybe you're going to spend it doing the things that you love, like exercising or painting or woodworking or collecting sports cards. These are all ways that we can effectively change our lives for the better just by using some of this new technology that's to come. As we think about Alexa, this is the promise of voice today. This is the path that we're headed down. This is why we always say that it's day one. And for those of you that have built Alexa skills before, this is the beginning of our journey to a personal AI companion. Whether that's being able to control our vehicles or order food or make reservations or just listen to music. All of these things will continue to grow into one all-encompassing AI that we personally own and control. We decide how and when it's going to work. We decide the access that it's going to have and the context that it will have about our lives. But it's a really exciting time. This highly connected world that we live in, with AI saving us the time and the hassle of the mundane, this is a world I really want to live in. There's a lot of things that we do in our lives that I don't want to have to spend the time doing. I would much rather offload that to an application that I trust. I want the freedom to focus on invention and creation of amazing new things, and I think we're on the right path. So with that, I want to thank you guys all for listening and for the technical difficulties we had at the beginning. And if you have any questions, I will take a peek at the Q&A, but thank you guys all for tuning in. I really appreciate that. And if you would like to get a hold of me or if you have any questions, you can find me at Jeff Blankenberg just about everywhere, really, like just about everywhere you can find me. And if you'd like to join our community, we have a community of over 2,000 Alexa skill developers that are all getting together on a daily basis on Slack. So if you'd like to find us there and join us, you can find us at alexa.design/Slack. So with that, I have a few minutes. If you guys would like to ask me any questions, I'll scroll through the comments to see if I missed anything, but thank you guys all so much for having me. Let's see, sound. Somebody said there's a strong echo, which is a great play on words for the device. Okay. Thank you guys for the compliments. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, and I think I have about 30 seconds left. But thank you guys all so much. This is it's always a pleasure to be able to share kind of my thoughts and ideas. And I have a much longer version of this talk, but in the 20 minutes we had, I thought this was a good preview. So I want to thank you guys all so much. I am going to wrap up the broadcast here in about 10 seconds. But again, if any of you would like to reach out to me, you can honestly find me literally everywhere at Jeff Blankenberg. So thank you guys all so much for your time. Have a great rest of the conference, and thank you to the organizers for having me. Bye-bye.